Gillian, you started off by raising a question about the title itself, about transforming customer behavior, and actually you have to transform yourself was the message. Of course, you have transformed customer behavior in the process. They've come back to you, would seem to be the message. Can I just ask you this, and I'm speaking as someone who used to work at the BBC. Tab, I guess, was seen as not cool. You've turned it into something which is cool. Otherwise, you don't get youngsters wearing tab caps. What's the time frame? I mean, how quickly can you move? How quickly can you change customer behaviour?
Well, thank you. We're trying to be cool. I think we are. I mean, we're very respectful of where we are in the ecosystem, that we're on a journey, and we are trying to get better every day. But the point is, for me, you have to lean in fast because it always takes longer than you think. And so we are making change every day. We talked a little bit about it, but the essence of trying to make that change is being really clear about where you want to go. Have whatever the strategy looks like to get there, and then you execute as well as you can, relentlessly as you can, and consistently as you can. And that's the story for us. You know, we were where we are, and we're trying to go where we are. We're working on all of our to take the broader narrative. We're working on our partnerships across the board, because you can't do it alone. And so we're just trying to front up to our customers, and then we're trying to do it with the help of our friends. And where we're on the journey, the market will judge, but we are prepared to make mistakes on that journey and be as innovative and as fast moving as we can, because we don't have time. And that's a bit of, maybe say it's easy for you, but I think the broader story is, I think that mindset is available to everyone.
I mean, it's interesting because I am assuming slightly here, but if I ask someone in Australia, what is Tabcorp, they say it's a wagering company. So that's first and foremost what people think about. You're putting a lot of time and effort now into other aspects, improving the offer in bars and the like, and making that a more appealing venue. Why? I mean, that is not clearly directly the role of a wagering company.
Well, so we have retail wagering outlets. And again, they were the Tab of old. They were passive, not contemporary. We didn't talk to the customers. They were presented in a very static way. So the story of how we want to present on course, which is instead of tote machines and long-term employees manning them in terms of being an interactive part of the day, we want that to be with the young men and women in our retail venues. We want to be part of the experience in a pub or a club. So the way we presented on course there is the same as the way we want to present in retail, that instead of being a passive service, we are part of the experience of the day, that watching the racing or the football or catching up with your friends, we can be part of that experience the right way, and in a way that actually is fun, inclusive, social, engaging, and part of their day. And so that's our omni-channel proposition, that we're going to try that do in all of our channels. And it's a broader experience than wagering. But we are part of the experience, and we are an experiential product, and that's our journey, and we're getting some traction in that.
Yeah. Bill, you said in the course of your presentation, wagering is not the be-all and end-all, it's not the everything. Nonetheless, you've got wagering revenues going up at a time when they're in decline across racing in the US at the moment. So what are you doing right in that space to encourage more? I should point out, wagering is not something for every jurisdiction, as we well know, and there are many other areas of entertainment or attraction to bring people to racing, but it's clearly an important part of your business.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate with the Kentucky Derby that in and of itself is a great success from the financial perspective. But the fact is, you need big days in the industry because you have to punch out beyond your core fans. The key to the Derby, when you look at the increasing wagering figures, we have clearly punched beyond the core industry and reached a much, much broader audience. And that leads to significantly more handle. Maybe on a per cap basis, as you get outside of the core industry, of course, your per cap numbers per person will go down, but you reach many, many, many more people. So that's one of the, the themes and one of the stories of the Derby, that our team has seen great success in punching and reaching a much, much broader audience. And it's an important challenge for U.S. horse racing, but probably I would imagine horse racing in most jurisdictions. You have to hold events, you have to hold experiences at your racetrack that are interesting beyond just core bettors or core racetrack participants. You have to reach more casual fans. If you can do so, you have a chance to monetize them not only on that day, but to build them into fans that participate well beyond that day.
Right, and you can do the wagering through your Twin Spires app, I think it's called. How do you keep your punters on that?
Well, yes, it's been an important initiative for our company over the last 20 years. Our online wagering platform, twinspires.com, it does nearly 20% of U.S. turnover comes in through that single app. We have other apps and off-track betting parlors and racetracks, but not including those, just looking at Twin Spires itself, it's doing close to 20% of the U.S. handle. So that's an important tool. It allows us to vertically integrate around our own events, but also it gives us a great snapshot because everything digitally is recorded and can be studied and measured. It gives us a great snapshot of our customers and their interest in U.S. racetracks and U.S. racing and international racing well beyond our own content. So it's a treasure trove of data. It's a treasure trove of understanding of U.S. horse players. It's a large enough sample pool that it gives us really a proxy for the industry as a whole. And it's wonderful not only from a vertical integration perspective, using it to fuel wagering on the Derby and wagering on our own facilities, but it also gives us great understanding of how to best position the industry and our offerings for the larger U.S. customer base.
Teresina, you gave us the example of Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, by the way. It is, and I'll tell you a bit about our social program later. And the pictures are fantastic. It looks very exciting. Was that driven? I appreciate that you weren't there at the time, but was that driven by customer desires, or was that an internal proactive initiation? Because I think we're trying to work out who's riding the horse here.
Yeah, no, thanks, David. If I look at some of the stats that we observe in Hong Kong, as I mentioned earlier, the mobile penetration is really high, which is over 200% within the population. And also, I think ever since COVID, we see that the adoption in terms of digital and mobile is real in Hong Kong. And therefore, we adopt a digital-first journey, right? So everything we try to put on is about how to actually make it easy in terms of accessible to mobile as well. So if you look at all the contents we create in the Hong Kong Jockey Club, the three things I find is most attractive to especially younger generation is one, many younger audience feels that racing is quite complex. It's not an easy sport to understand. So what I call the first one we did is edutainment. So we create bite-sized, mobile-driven reels, short clips, so that people actually find it easier to discover that sport itself, right? We've built in gamification as well, so we've got polls, quizzes, so that people actually can feel more engaged, and also they can unlock different levels when they actually progress in terms of that journey. Second, another very, very popular item that we have within Jockey Club is what we call the Tipster Leadership Board. Again, depending on the audience understanding and knowledge of racing, they can actually find different influencers to build up that knowledge. We also use that as helping them to get the first win so that they're actually more hooked on and actually understand the excitement of the game as well. The third element I also said is actually very important, and we're doing more and more of that, is how to actually create that emotional connection. And especially in younger audience and generation, we find that that emotion connection, be it with a horse or jockey, really kind of go the extra miles so that people are actually much more interested in the game, in racing itself. So what we've done is we features our especially homegrown local jockeys for people to actually really understand the behind the scene, what exactly is the daily life, how they actually go about from a trainee jockey to become a very successful jockey now. And we find that that followership does attract and to be much more magnetic so that people actually get hooked onto the content we provide digitally. And therefore, they've got much more interested in terms of coming into the race course and to also support the jockey or the horse they like.
Yeah, so digital first being
Exactly.
the words I pick out there. Gillian, you gave us a good example that we're in a global world and standards are becoming standardized in a sense. Expectations are standardized. Are you a digital first position, or do you? I mean, we're talking about pubs and clubs here to draw people in. How important is the digital element for you?
Very, but contextually, we don't think we can ever be better than, say, I saw Nathan before, say, Sportsbet and Flutter, who are got a head start on us, global scale. Their product development is so slick, so fast to market. So we were trying to go head to head with them and losing, and they're just bigger and better. But what we want to be is competitive. So that for the average racing enthusiast, we are competitive, and it fits all the digital requirements. And that's the point, though, that we're going to talk to whatever share of our market is in a different way. We have the retail network. We have Sky Media. We think the premium racing assets in Randwick and Flemington and others, and we're going to have an omni-channel experience that is going to be a different proposition. So we have to be able to be competitive and have all of the assets that people want, be fast and clean and offer the right products. But we position that in a broader network because that's where our point of differentiation is in a very cluttered, very competitive market.
On that subject, you're working hard to establish a tote, I think, at some point in the course of this year. What difference would that make to you, do you think, these days?
So we talked about the age and the legacy aspects of our business. So we have 3 totes, different regulators in each market, and we want the liquidity benefits of having one tote, which will facilitate product development at a cheaper price and a unified view of that. And so we're working hard on that. It's a technology journey, it's a regulatory journey, and it's a stakeholder engagement, speaking with our PRA partners and bringing them on a journey that has some emotional consequence. But we're going okay. We also ultimately want to talk to our broader partners about how we can talk to our fixed odds partners in a way that they work with them in a B2B way. And so, that's a thread through the theme of what my presentation is, that ultimately we compete here hard for a share of wallet, but there's offers, B2B and offers and other things that we can do within that network, within that range.
We'll see how that pans out. Look, we're quite short on time, but you called them stunts. Bill, you called them events, and Teresina, you talked about experiential opportunities. It's that added extra, it's that something different that you get when you come to an event. How important is it to keep bringing the changes on that? It's funny, it suddenly occurred to me, racing and Super Bowl have one massive thing in common. It is an experience now. Most sports, people are driven by the match, by the event, but this is different. So how do you have to keep refreshing that year on year, or do you want customers to start knowing what they're going to get? We'll run down the line, yeah.
I think that if someone's going to a sporting event from 2 hours to 8 hours, they don't want to be engaged every minute, they need some downtime, but it is with kids, without kids, different interests, and you are trying to have people have the best experience they can end to end, from when they walk through the gate to the end. And part of that is the service proposition, the food proposition, the on-field or on-course proposition, but it's everything in between.
Okay.
And having your own version of what Churchill Downs does or Hong Kong Jockey Club, it's what's the proposition you are and therefore what works for you in terms of activation. And most of what we heard yesterday, people trying to go younger, and then it's what's the appropriate stuff that sits with that. And so I think you've got to keep leaning in, because with we talked about attention span and all those things, you've got to hold people's attention.
Yeah.
If I can share, David, is we are moving into a direction also using more data-driven analysis to your point around the proposition we want to offer, right? Because the reality is you have a population which is more hardcore diehard fans. Then you've got the casual goers, you've got the tourists as well, right? And everybody's kind of coming into the digital world as well as encores, looking for different type of experiences, right? And we need to craft the way in which we look at different propositions for the audience in a different way, because otherwise you will start losing them. So we look at a customer's view from a 360 perspective. It's very much a journey, because you need to be able to collate enough information of the customers actually coming through the door, then to really analyze in terms of what excites them. So the way in which we create different programs is we'll have some which is much more guided, so that people who come in don't feel lost. We'll actually share with them in terms of using some of the digital tools that we have, sharing contents, so they feel ease in terms of participating in raising. In other areas in which we've got more kind of regular audience coming in, then we really kind of amplify and elevate that ease of navigation experience for them. Right? Yeah. So I think it's very much a journey, but the more data we can actually collate from our audiences, I think the more we can have fine-tuned as well as targeted programs around that.
And making it as accessible as possible in the process. Bill?
Yeah, I think our sport really is different than most other sports in that the amount of actual sport content that we have is so much less than, say, if you're watching a football game or a cricket match. And I think we shouldn't treat that as a negative or a challenge. We need to embrace that. So particularly around the big days, we need to think of our sport as a participatory sport. We want people, we want to lean into the social and lean into entertaining, helping people entertain themselves with their family and friends, and through wagering, through other activities going on the facility at the time. And I think that can be an advantage. I think when you program around the day, understanding that you do not have 3/4 of the time window consumed with the actual sporting event, and that you have to find other ways to facilitate people participating in their experience there, I think that can actually become a strong advantage if it's done well. And it's something we can't treat it as a negative or something we have to fix with more racing during the same period of time. We have to instead focus on maximizing the experience of folks. And I think actually the digital era, the era of social media, that actually has helped. That's been a tailwind for our industry, because particularly our younger demographics, but really all demographics, now feel more emboldened to capture their experience or to drive their own experience and share it with others. So I think that expectation in the consumer that they can and should participate actually is beneficial to us when we think about events like the Derby or the Kentucky Oaks and even day-to-day racing. So we embrace that.
So actually, in terms of sport turning into an experience, these are not so much challenges and obstacles, they are opportunities. Yes. And they are gaps to fill with something fantastic, and as we've seen from your examples, can be done. We're going to have to draw it to a close there. Thank you very much indeed to all three of you for your contributions. Ladies and gentlemen, to our panel, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.